All right, we're moving into some of the harder stuff you do in this class, so you're going to really pay attention while you're taking these notes. Some of you are going to get kind of stopped up in this section. A little math constipation is going to happen, I think. So make sure you're listening as well as writing, and ask questions before you get the worksheet if you're not really sure what's going on with your notes. This is going to be section 3.5, so make sure you write it at the top. And we are going to be multiplying, which we did in the last section, but we're going to add an and here. And we're going to add some division of our rational expressions. And remember, those are really just fancy name for a fraction that has variable expressions in it. So before we add the division, because that's going to be our new thing right here, let's review the multiplication. So one quick review problem, and what I'd like you to do with this review problem, well, first let's write it down. We're going to take x squared minus 2x minus 15 over 4. And we are going to multiply it by 8 over x plus 3. We're going to go to the side and remind ourselves what we do. We do not start being mad slashers and going and wiping x's out and all that kind of stuff, or the 15 with the 3. We realize that we have to factor first. If you do not factor first in this chapter, you will fail it, and you'll be sent back to factor first, because when you get an F on a test, unless you're way behind and need to progress, you will get sent back to fix that. So make sure that you factor everything first. What I'd like you to do is pause the video and go do this one on your own, just to see if you've got it down without me talking you through it. So pause the video now. All right, so hopefully you paused the video and went in here and factored the top. Nothing comes out of these three terms, so I immediately go to the end, because I realize that it's going to have to lead in an x and an x. It's going to end in either 15 and 1 or 5 and 3, and we should be really good at spotting. Notice a sign error in this case is going to have you miss some canceling, so make sure you're not making any sign errors. 4 is as good as it gets down on the bottom there. 8 is as good as it gets on the top right. And x plus 3 is as good as it gets on the bottom right. Now I cancel my common factors. There is no x minus 5. And again, consider those parentheses or that subtraction like glue. It is gluing x with the 5. They have to cancel as one whole glued together chunk. I can't take this out with this x because they are glued. X is with a minus 5, and if you don't see another one with a minus 5 glued together, you don't cancel them. This x is glued together with a plus 3, and this bottom also. What I can also take out is a 4 out of the bottom and a 4 out of the top. So when I'm done and I multiply straight across, I've got a 2 and an x minus 5 left on the top and nothing left on the bottom, or really just a 1. But when we say how old are you, you don't say 16 divided by 1. This is not necessary on the bottom for division. On the top it is though. So that's done, and hopefully you got that one right, because if not, it ties directly into our new stuff. So now what we're going to do is division, and we already practiced division without the fractions, so you should know that division, the reason it's lumped in this same section is division really is multiplication. When I take 8 and divide it by a half, remember that's not 4. Really what I'm doing is cutting each of 8 pieces in halves. Like if I have 8 pieces of pizza and I cut them each in half, I'm really staring at 8 times 2 pieces. So division is multiplication. It's just, it's multiplication by the reciprocal. So let's underline that word and let's give it a non-math term. Reciprocal just means flip, and you flip the second fraction. All right, so I'll let you get that written down. We're going to do 3 examples, and that'll be it for examples for this section. One thing to note, too, is that we still, because this is actually multiplication, we still must factor before we cancel. So let's write that over on the side. We've written it a lot. Factor before any canceling. I don't want to see any mad slashers out there just slashing at stuff because it looks good. We're going to factor before we do any canceling. That's the most important thing in this entire chapter. All right, so we're going to go do 3 examples. Number 1, 6x minus 18. I immediately kind of look at that and know I can factor it because there's a 6 in both of those. We'll do that in a second. Divided or over 4x. Divided by 2x minus 6. As I write it, I should spot that they're both even, so a 2 can come out, over x. So the first thing we do is we are going to change this to multiplication, and we're going to multiply by the reciprocal, or the flip, of the second fraction. The first fraction remains unchanged. So really all I do initially is change my division problem to a multiplication problem. Now it's just like the last section. I don't start slashing at these 6's do not go because that 6 is glued to the x, which is glued to a minus 18. It's all one big factor. So I go to the top and I notice I can divide a 6 out of both terms. The bottom left and the top right are as good as they get. When I go down here, I notice that they're both even, and I can divide a 2 out of both terms. Now and only now that I've factored, can I go cancel common factors. Is there a 6 on the bottom? No, but 2 is in 6 3 times, and there's a 2 on the bottom. Is there an x minus 3 on the bottom? Yes. Is there a factor of x on the bottom? Yes. So when I'm all done on the top, I only have a 3 left. And on the bottom, it looks like I only have a 4 left. So boy, that simplified really nicely. And that one's all done. 2 more to go. Number 2. X squared minus 2x minus 8 divided by 6x plus 18 divided by 4x minus 16 all over. And again, if you need to pause these to catch up with writing down the problem, that's the whole reason we're doing these lessons this way, so you can do it at your own pace. So if I wrote too fast for you, you just pause it, get it down, and then hit play. So the first thing I'm going to do is change this to multiplication. I'm then going to flip the second fraction. I'm going to leave the first fraction unchanged. I do not cancel, I go factor, and this has a lot of factoring because every single part on here can factor. Is there anything hiding in all of these? No. However, when it's 3 terms, I try to unfoil it. What multiplies to equal 8 that I can get a negative 2 out of? And the answer is 4 and 2, as long as I overpower it with negatives. Negative 4 plus 2 is negative 2. Negative 4 times 2 is negative 8. On the bottom, is there anything in both of these? Yes. And a 6 is the biggest thing. If you don't find the biggest thing, you'll have more reducing to do at the end. It doesn't mean you'll get it wrong. You just have more to do. On the top left, right, can I pull anything out? No. Can I unfoil it? Anything multiplied to equal 12? That also adds up to 7. 6 and 2? No, that'd give me an 8 in the middle. 12 and 1? No. 3 and 4? Yes. And everything's positive. Notice how the factoring skills are very necessary in this. On the bottom, is there any, you might say, oh, difference of squares. No, this doesn't have an x squared on it, so nothing times itself is going to give you an x. Had that been an x squared, though, you would be good. But I can divide a 4 out of both of those terms. Now I get to be a mad slasher. Okay, I have factored. So anything glued together, x is glued with a minus 4, same over here. X plus 2, nope, I can't cancel these x's because one of them's glued to a 2 and the other's glued to a 3. But this one can go. So when I'm done, on the top, I have x plus 2 that never canceled. I have x plus 4 that never canceled. I have 6 times 4 that never canceled. And you might say, oh, you can take a 2 out. No, you can't. That 2 is glued with an x. So if anything lives next to a plus or minus, you never, ever, ever cancel it. That one's done. One more. And I always try to keep the notes at a maximum of 15 minutes, so I think I'll make it on this one. So last example, number 3. Number 3, we're going to do 5x plus 15 divided by 12x. All of that divided by x plus 3 over 10x cubed. Do I start canceling? No. Does this cancel with this? No. One's living next to a plus. Nothing cancels until you factor first. So I'm going to change the link to a multiplication. I'm going to flip or take the reciprocal of the second fraction. I'm going to leave the first fraction unaltered. You might want to pause to catch up with my writing. Now what do? I go factor everything I possibly can. The only thing I'm going to really be factoring on this is the top left. That's the only place where I see a plus or a minus. By the way, when you see pluses or minuses linking things, that implies, that's what that symbol means, that you are going to be factoring. So on the top, I'll notice a 5 living in both of those, and I'll divide it out. The bottom doesn't have a plus or minus link. The top doesn't have a plus or minus link. The bottom right does, but it doesn't factor any farther. So now I start canceling entire factors. Do I see a 5 on the bottom? No. Do I see a x plus 3? Yes. Do I see a 10? No. But I see that I've got 2 evens, so I can divide a 2 out of the 10. I can divide a 2 out of the 12. Do I see an x cubed? No, but I see 1x living on the bottom, so I can knock that down to x squared. And this is where you kind of have to write neatly on these so you don't lose stuff, or I like to go circle it. This is remaining, this is remaining, this is remaining. None of those things cancel off. On the bottom, everything canceled but the 6. So on the top, I have 5 times 5 times x squared. And on the bottom, just a 6. All right, so our main summary today is that division implies that you're going to multiply the flip. And as usual, we're going to remember to factor before we cancel. Ah! My screen went a little haywire. All right, so you will go grab worksheet number 6. It is blue. And when that's done, no notes, you'll immediately go to worksheet number 7, which is also blue. These two both deal with this topic. And that's it. Peace out, Boy Scout.